So a few days ago, Epic made a Reddit post talking about the new update because they have heard your feedback. They have read through everything everybody has said. I myself had sent them a text limit Discord message where I had to do a part 2 to continue on. They know how we feel. They know what we're thinking, and they're talking about this update to see if they're going to keep it exactly how it is or not and what changes need to be made. But for now, what they did is they introduced an explanation of what we're going to talk about, some known issues that threw off a lot of players, what these changes are, and what was wrong with the old system, including specifically how this new rating works, and then of course finally the downsides at the bottom, which has been the main source of friction with the community. Let's just read through this point by point, and I'll give you guys my thoughts as we go along. So, hey folks, this is Jason, by the way. He's an Epic Senior Systems Designer, as is right there. I don't know if he's like an actual programming developer, or if he's just one of the designers of the game. You know how titles at companies are rarely specific, but that's who he is. He is high up at Epic. So there has been a lot of discussion and confusion about the changes to the fort stats and power rating that was done. By the way, your fort stats are these ones: Fortitude, Offense, Resistance, and Tech. If you guys would ever like to see your stats, just go to the command tab, and then down here, this is where your stats are. For reference, by the way, this is about 40%, I believe, higher, or 60% higher than they were in the previous update. So even if your power rating shifted, we'll get into this later, by the way, your stats in total are basically you if you yourself was quadrupled into like a 4-person lobby. So you basically have 4-player stats at your rating at all times. And even as this power shifts, we'll get into this, but these numbers do not change. So that is what your fort stats are and what they are referencing. So that rating was done in an update 39. That was the last one, made worse by a few bugs that we'll talk about that landed alongside the change. He'd like to clarify what was intended and what's actually a bug and discuss the design of it and thinking behind the changes and give us a place to talk about feedback. If you would like to weigh in on this discussion, I think this post is going to be heavily moderated by Epic. There are already 146 comments. If you'd like to add to it, link down below. I am 3 days late to this as they sent me this, and for reference of where I was sitting in a hotel room responding to this. So like I was super unavailable. Dailies skipped for 3 days. I could not talk about this, but I'm here now. If you'd like to give your feedback, comment on this Reddit post. I'll link it down below. I'll send them this video. If you want to comment in my YouTube comments, you're of course always welcome to, but this is the place to do it officially. So these are the 2 major bugs. First and foremost, if you leveled up in ventures prior to the update, you lost your power rating because it occurred where they increased how many fort stats you get at each venture's level, but failed to make those changes retroactive if you'd already gained those levels. So a lot of max level players were just locked at a certain point and could not continue. That is fixed in the next update. So ventures kind of got hit in an awkward situation. And then if you play in a lower difficulty mission, it can temporarily drop your power rating down. That is what I covered in this 142 to 47 video here. It was a common and extremely confusing bug that you would leave a mission, lose a bunch of power rating, and you guys freaked the out and were very concerned thinking that was permanent. In reality, it was basically just a visual change. Your stats did change because it wasn't calculating properly, but if you restarted the game, switched your loadout, or in fact, I believe he goes into it here, blah, 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 you can work around this by forcing it to recalculate right here. So change your hero loadout, your survivor squads, play a mission close to your rating. In fact, I found that when it was happening to me, just queuing into a game fixed it. Unfortunately, that allowed some people to be locked out of content, and this will be elaborated down below, but that bug should be fixed in the next update. I'm being told that this is on the 11th, so in just a few days. So if you're patient, these should get resolved. But I wanted to say right here that, like, I don't know where it is down here, but sometimes that would lock you out of content, which was not intended, but they'll get into that. So the purpose, this is why they made the change, was to simplify how the power rating is calculated and give you a simple view of how powerful you are. That's why they removed research. So to help understand which difficulty levels will provide a balanced and fun experience, this idea was always that the rating of all your weapons, heroes, and survivors / fort stats should all roughly match each other. For reference, by the way, your fort stats are determined by, as I understand it, 2 main things. First and foremost, your account level. This just goes up by playing missions and getting XP, and I believe by completing main quests. So if you are in the quest tab, my new account would show this better, but there are things that are telling you to run Stonewood, run Plankerton, there's things to do in Canny, that kind of stuff. But your squads over here do affect it directly. So if I take out my EMT leader here and just remove that max supercharged elite survivor, mythic survivor, you can see I dropped over 300 points in my fortitude stat. My power rating went down by 2. However, if I go to my backpack, oh, that'll be harder to do on my main account. Okay, if we go to my hero loadout over here and swap Raven for literally anything, just a level 12 hotfix or hazard, you can see I dropped a ton of power rating. But if I go back to my fort stats, nothing changed at all. This will be elaborated on the post in a second here, but that is a major source of confusion. People are seeing their power level shift so much. I'm getting ahead of myself, I know. He talks about this directly. They're seeing it shift so much that sometimes you can't even Q MSK, you can't even Q 160s, you get locked out of 108, 124 zones really, really easily. I don't know what was here. I'll fix it later. But the problem with that is you're getting locked out of content while your stats themselves didn't even change. Granted, your effectiveness might. If you're running a level 12 commander instead of a 144, that will make a difference to your stats. Your health, shield, and ability damage will be severely reduced, but your weapon damage would be completely unchanged, which is really unintuitive and something that confused a lot of people with this update. So let me read through this and stop getting ahead of myself. The core purpose was to simplify it. Previously, the power rating only reflected your fort stats, which meant two players with the exact same stats as I just demonstrated could be at very different levels of effectiveness, especially if the heroes and weapons differs. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So if your survivor squads were mine duplicated, but I'm running a level 12 ground pounder and you're running a 130, we're going to be very, very different levels of power. There was no method to express those differences, though, without digging into the ratings of individual items, which, let's be honest, most people didn't do, and no indication that improving the level of your heroes and weapons actually increases your power in combat. I say most people. I don't have stats for that. My entire channel is changing that fact. My entire purpose of my Fortnite videos on my channel, maybe not my Bloons Monkey City guide, but you know, most of my Fortnite videos are geared towards helping you think about those stats and running optimal perks, optimal loadouts. You know, for example, these are not optimal perks unless you've got Totally Rockin' Out. So there's a lot to think about, and I wonder if Epic knew. So, I mean, they always know stuff we don't. They track more stats than we could imagine, but I wonder if they recognize that a lot of people were just either forgetting to level up their weapons or simply didn't level up their hero loadouts. A lot of people's power level went down in this update by a couple here and there, but I think what many people, based on my comments, were doing, I had some people comment that people were self-reporting that they were running like level 70 supports and 130 leads type stuff, where you just forgot to level up your support heroes. Maybe you didn't think it mattered. Maybe because there was no visual change, you hardly noticed. In fact, health and shield has been bugged for so many years that we don't even know. I am running Blast from the Past. I will not have shield in game. It's telling me I have 346,000 shield. This is just a bugged stat. It has been unreliable for most of its existence since the 2019 update when they reworked hero loadouts. So even as an advanced player, I don't even look at this. This is a stat that does not give me useful information. So the only thing anywhere to indicate that the rating of your heroes matters is when you're leveling them up. And even then it's pretty vague. Let me go to my recording screen here. I am on Twitch, link down below if you guys ever want to come hang out. So as you're leveling up Alchemist Sarah here, it will tell you your ability damage will go up. That's your smoke bomb, your crescent kick, your dragon slash, stuff like that. It'll tell you you'll heal more based on whenever you heal, I guess. Your shield regen, shield, and health. So that's it. People wouldn't really know how much of a difference that's making or that it really makes any difference at all. So people just don't level up their heroes, which between you and I, if it's your support heroes, it probably really doesn't matter that much. So long as we're getting Alchemist Sarah's base 50 something, 51 healing from the smoke bomb and support, we don't really care, do we? But it would make your power rating go down, and that's confusing a lot of people as it swings so much. So it's a situation where they wanted that to be reflected in your power level. So the new rating encapsulates more of the things that contribute to damage, health, heroes. Damage would be your weapons, health would be your heroes, shields would be your heroes, and of course all of this would be your survivor squads, making that number more accurate. A more accurate estimate of your combat power in mission. So these are the four main things that the new system does. So the fort stats go through a similar calculation to before, with a new mapping to account for the increased individual fort stat budget. What that means is, as I said, your stats before at max level were about, don't quote me, it's 3,200-ish. It's not a number we paid attention to. Previously, in a full squad of max levels 145, we were getting about 5,800 stats. Now I'm 143 in the new update, so our stats are about high 5,600s at max level. I could have a squad full of 144s, but as we've already discussed, and I think I threw away that garbage loadout once I started recording, once I started playing on stream again with you guys, Twitch link down below, I removed the one I showed in videos, but as we discussed, that wouldn't even affect my stats anyway. So these are basically max stats now, which are way higher than they used to be. So they changed the calculation to adjust for that. And then the rating of all of your heroes in your hero loadout, that's all 6 of them, are averaged together with the commander slot weighed in more. As we understand it, don't quote me exactly, but Tomatek, the guy who runs Peg Leg, he's inside in the numbers in the weeds a lot, suggested that the commander was about 70% of your power rating contribution, and then each of your supports were about 5% each. If I'm doing my math right, 6% each. That would have been 30 total down there. Then it will take the ratings of your 3 best weapons in your backpack, average them together, and get an estimate of what you might have readily available. This might be the most controversial change. In my opinion, I kind of agree. Weapon dropping has been disabled. You cannot share them between teammates legitimately, and that's fine for the future of the game, but there have been 7 years of giveaways, trading, buying weapons, freebies from high-level players who didn't realize they were trivializing newbies' experiences. They just wanted to help, and whatever, finding it on the ground. Like, there have been years of people just getting free weapons, and in my opinion, it's a little awkward that there's really no proof that you're even using those weapons. On my noob account, I didn't want weapon dropping. I wanted to have a normal experience, or at least a legit experience. So I did allow someone to give me a high level Baron, but I used it exclusively for movement. That being 122 bumped my level by 4 power rating, which is awkward because I'm not using that for combat. So now my power rating, as legitimately as I could, was being inflated. So that's a weird change. I would like that to be not your backpack, but your schematics that you could craft. That is some feedback a lot of people have given. I think it's one of the top comments in here. I'm not sure exactly, but it was when I checked. Somebody had already said that. So that's something that it considers. Then those 3 ratings were averaged together, weighed to roughly match the contributions to your stats, and a large contribution from fort sets, smaller ones from heroes and weapons. So that's basically what the new power rating is looking into. I've talked about this a lot in previous videos, but I'm explaining it thoroughly here since Epic is here to lay it out clearly. The downsides of that I've already talked a lot about is reading through the comments over the past few days. It's clear we underestimated the importance of the secondary purpose of power rating, which is representing your progress towards maximizing your stats and completing your collection of survivors. This change unfortunately put that max rating further out of reach, which is why 143 is kind of the natural max instead of 145, since it now includes supercharging all your heroes and weapons as well. So I think we meant 2 things there. They thought, okay, well, now you're not just supercharging survivors, you have to supercharge your weapons and your heroes. We didn't think about that being so grindy. In my opinion, and I definitely told Epic this, like, you used to be 145 in max level. Now it's 143. I get this change, I think. I understand the vision, and what they're laying out is largely what I understood, but I don't know, they couldn't have tuned it just a little more generously so that our displayed power rating actually was 145, because if you don't know anything about anything, you just load up your game and your power level dropped by 2, you would be concerned, and you were. Thousands of you told me exactly that. So I don't know exactly that part, but another thing they considered, and what they just wrote, is that you have to supercharge your supports. In my opinion, it's not that weird, okay? We are already egregiously time-gated on max level. If you want to hit max power level, you will be required to supercharge all of your survivors. If you are running Ventures and the weekly Supercharger reward is generous with the Survivor Superchargers, it takes about roughly 3.2 or 3.5 years. If you skip one Venture season, you just lost that season's worth of time. It is over 3 years of running through Ventures at least, I believe, 11 or 12 times to level 46. Level 46 is where you stop getting Survivor Superchargers if you really want to nickel and dime Ventures, but that's a lot of grinding. Most players just don't do it. And in my opinion, if you're doing all of that anyway, you probably got, in 3 years, enough hero superchargers and weapon superchargers to make a max power level loadout, but there are a lot of heroes in the game. There are a lot of different ways you could play, and they're probably seeing that if you feel it, I mean, even though you and I both know supercharging a hero isn't that big of a difference, but people are still going to see their power rating go down. Like I said, you can max out a bunch of heroes and get 144 as your power rating, but if you want to use a more balanced loadout that, you know, actually makes sense, you might have to use a 130 hero, which will drop your power rating by like 1. It's kind of big. But it's just a farce. Like, your power rating went down, but your effectiveness probably went up. And I can explain that clearly if I haven't been clear enough. Like, Bomb Suit here makes sense in Frost Knight. He's 130, which is lower, but that 22 armor covered by my tip jar, that is enough of a threshold to protect you from a taker before they got super nerfed in Frost Knight. Maybe we could talk about that in a second. However, in a bow loadout, it would probably make sense to use something a little smarter. I don't know if I have Rex Jonesy Supercharger or not, but let's just pretend I do. All right, let's just say Sledge is my Rex Jonesy. My power rating just went up a little bit. The lay player might say, oh, Sledgehammer is better, even though he's a dead perk right now. He's a dead perk. Maybe that actually shows my point better. So you and I both know that Bomb Suit is like a much more tactical decision, even though my power rating, you know, went down, I got weaker, but I totally did not. So it's a really confusing system, and now people are going to be OCD incentivized to 144 every freaking hero. And I'll tell you now, we all know this. Epic simply does not give us enough superchargers to do that. I have been a little lackluster. I've dropped a few venture seasons. I've tried to live my life outside of my PC a bit more. I have not supercharged that many heroes in the grand scheme of things. I've been playing this update since it came out 5.5 years ago. That's when Ventures and all that got introduced. This is it. These are all the heroes I have supercharged. That's like not even that much if you consider the variety of this game. You guys have seen my fun loadouts playlist with over 200 unique loadouts. Some of those are the same loadout, different weapon, but you get the idea. If you want to play around with any amount of variety, you're going to have to remind yourself that 130 is perfectly fine, because feeling like you have to supercharge everything is insane. I actually once broke down the math to Epic about how many it would take for me to get all my weapons supercharged, how many years. It was 24 years. At the time, I was 24. I told them, like, I would have to live my life again playing Save the World to max out all my weapons. Do you get how insane that is? In my opinion, they could quintuple the weekly supercharger reward and it would be completely fine. I would say 144 hero per week is totally fair. Do you guys know there are over 150 heroes in this game? So just from this quest, it would take you 3 years of this quest giving hero superchargers to actually do them all. If you're grinding ventures, maybe 2 years. I think 2 years is a fair amount of grinding. Oh my god. Consider the fact that 160s, if you're playing casually, if you're like me, talking to chat, hanging out with friends, it takes me about 3 hours to do these, which means that's 15 hours of 160s for one 144 weapon. I told Epic this years ago. That is wild. I mean, I get it. It's like a carrot on the stick for endgame players to keep playing, but that's insane. I'm a weapons guy. I like weapons. You guys were like, oh no, Xenombo's broken. I quit the game because I can't use my brain. There are so many weapons, you guys. I'm not trying to be a dick with that. I seriously mean it. Like, shotguns are stupid good. Gravedigger's fun. Hacksaw's awesome. Give it totally rocking out in Crackshot. Trust me, okay? Almost every weapon in this game is viable with something. I know we like to the nailer. Seriously, dude, you give this thing the right element, totally rocking out, double crit damage. That is to say, all of the buffs you can give a weapon. I killed a smasher with this thing in that Tiger video on my channel just to lightly demonstrate that, like, even the worst AR in the game is usable. Viable, maybe debatable. Trust me, that same loadout with those same perks on almost any other AR might be better use of your time. There are just so many weapons that people don't even realize are totally viable. So it's like, I want to use them. I want to use all these things, Epic, but you know, I have my favorites supercharged. If I don't really know what to use, you guys, I have noticed myself subconsciously picking from my 144s. Like I just said, I'm a guy who loves variety, and even I just quietly forget about anything that's not 130. I know it doesn't make that big of a difference. 15% damage, I'm sorry, 14.69 is not that big of a difference, but is it 14.69? Because the calculation for like the percentage is actually so funny. We found that like the exact number is like 1,000 divided by 69, and that's your percent bonus. So it's like 14.5%. It's silly. Anyway, yeah, 69, nice. But even I just sort of forget about my 130s. So giving us more weapon superchargers would be fantastic. There are hundreds of weapons, and supercharging them is something we want to do. And I think quintupling the rewards so that your 160s just give you a new weapon, give you a new hero, you would still need to run it hundreds of times. That 3-year example was just 52 weeks in a year. So that is a lot of grinding. I mean, 52 weapon supercharger rewards back to back to back for a year would be like a quarter of the weapon. That would be a quarter of the weapons I would like to personally supercharge. We're not even talking about heroes anymore, let alone survivor superchargers. And did you guys know that traps are in the game too? The amount of superchargers they give us, I'm not kidding, and I think I articulated that well just now, is about a fifth of what I feel like they could be. So anyway, oh my god. All right, this put the max out of reach. The other problem made worse by bugs mentioned above is that changing your weapons and hero loadouts fluctuates your power rating a lot more than it used to, making it possible for you to lose access to content. Like I said, if you're about to run 160s, you're about to run MSK, you could shift your power rating like I just did right below 122. Say you have all your 144s, you can barely hit 122, and then you go ahead and watch my video and I'm suggesting Tank Penny and Guardian Bull, heroes that you might have never even touched before, and without even realizing it, you need to go and use those heroes you've never leveled up, and they're 130 or less, because we use Tank Penny for the hardware damage, and I think Guardian Bull is rating, one or the other. And it's super reasonable. You might have them level 12, and they'll still give you the damage bonus at 12. In my opinion, and I think we all know this, you would be a perfectly fine MSK teammate if you were running level 12 Guardian Bull and Penny. They don't need to be leveled up. You'll have more health, you should, but you don't need to if you're on a budget. So that alone could drop your power rating by like 20-30 points, as we just saw, and now you can't do MSK, even though you and I both know you totally could. I think Epic realizes this. It's in the downside section that fluctuating power level is a little aggressive. So anyway, the other problems made worse by the bugs, of course, is what I just mentioned, blah, blah, blah. This will become less of an issue once the bugs have been addressed, but they are keeping an eye on it. And if you swap to a lower level hero and your rating goes down as a result, that does not reduce your stats. That's what I said right away, and I've been saying. The rating doesn't drive your power, it just displays it. But it also determines what missions you can run. In my opinion, your fort stats might have to be a requirement for that, because right now power rating is what allows you to get into 160s. You need to be 124. I mean, it actually says it clearly in game. If you are leveling up in Twine, and I keep talking about the end game because that's, you know, the numbers that matter the most in my opinion. Oh, I guess okay, so I think it's when I'm under leveled you need to, so I had somebody in my level in my party that was, in fact, let me go to that broken loadout so I don't keep changing stuff around too much. There we go, hotfixer. So I'm at 112. It should tell me, if I go over and I try to do MSK, I can't even see it anymore. Yeah, it tells me I need to be 122 to run 140s. And if I went up a little bit in power rating, it would tell me I need to be 122 for MSK as well. So look at that. Like, just because I decided to use Hotfixer Hazard, I, a max level account by all measures, simply can't now. Granted, a level 12 commander is never something I would do. Maybe 82 minimum so I can at least get that bull rush unlocked. But like, you see what I'm saying. You see what Epic's saying. They see what they're saying. So yeah, thank you for all your patience as we nail down these bugs, and we are watching your feedback, bug reports, concerns, and they're going to monitor the impact of these changes because a lot of people were very disruptive. A lot of people said, I'm quitting forever, which is dramatic, but Epic sees that. So yeah, I hope good things come out of this. I understand the new system, I think, but obviously the issues have been clearly laid out, and I wanted to say one more thing. Of course. So in the known bugs, they didn't list this, but one major issue is, okay, I know I'm kind of just throwing this in at the end, but is that 144 player missions give you 202 or 3 or 4 level enemies that are actually higher than 160s. I believe this is a known bug where in a 164 player mission, you're still fighting 160s. And Epic has posted, I believe, that, or maybe we were talking about this in Frost Night. My brain is fried from a crazy weekend, but 128 in Frost Night, these things don't scale past 140. So around wave 17 or so, your enemies will hit 299 and then just stay there. Frost Night max used to be about 503 or 4. My videos show it, but it's over 500. It's a lot. So that is a really crazy bug. I haven't addressed it at all in this video because it wasn't in the post, but 160s are unplayably boring right now. And I said that to Epic and like in those words, like I personally, I don't want to run 160s anymore because any one of me or any high level player can just throw it on a base and a few lazy traps and probably just go get some lunch. Like it's stupidly easy. So I showed that in my Frost Night run. I didn't even run it on my noob account, although I think the noob account might be unaffected at its level, but my Merry Melee run was me just checking in saying, bro, this is nothing, and then like going on vacation. So yeah, anyway, I just wanted to mention that about 160s at the end. They're monitoring your feedback. Link to this down below if you guys want to tell me what you think, and goodbye. I'm gonna go get some lunch. That's a great idea. Subscribe, like the video. Oh, Advanced CG. I got a new flavor out. You should check it out. If you're watching this on the day of release, 30% off Advanced CG with Beast 30. Check out Beast Treasure Gold. Super yummy flavor. Link down below to that. So there you go. Enjoy. Yummy energy drinks. Pretty good. Pretty good.